The morning sun rose over the city, casting golden reflections on the glass skyscrapers that formed the silhouette of the financial district. Among the bustling streets, where people moved in a constant flow of work and commitments, was Jan, a 24-year-old black man dressed in an impeccable suit that concealed, behind its elegance, the insecurity growing in his chest. Jan had a dream: to become a renowned lawyer, someone capable of fighting against the injustices he had witnessed since childhood. He grew up in a disadvantaged community where social and racial inequality was palpable on every corner and where opportunities were as rare as sunny days in a harsh winter. However, his determination had led him to a promising internship at one of the most prestigious law firms in the city. On that day, he would face a crucial meeting. He was in charge of presenting the analysis of an important case, a responsibility rarely given to interns. Jan knew this was his chance to prove his worth, but he also knew that the environment he was in was not exactly welcoming. When he arrived at the office, he noticed the looks from his colleagues, most of them white, some with expressions of curiosity, others with tense smiles that didn't reach their eyes. He was preparing for the meeting when Clara, one of the firm's senior associates, intercepted him. Clara was a strong woman with gray hair and a keen gaze, known for her competence, but also for her cold demeanor. Jan, before you start, I want to remind you of the importance of this case for the firm. We can't afford any mistakes, she said, with a tone that mixed warning and distrust. Jan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He knew that for him, any mistake would be doubly penalized, not just because of the importance of the case, but also because of the prejudice many there harbored, hidden behind a mask of civility. The meeting started promptly. Jan presented his analysis confidently, demonstrating deep knowledge of the case and suggesting strategies that could be used in favor of the clients. However, he noticed that while he spoke, some of the older partners whispered among themselves, and others didn't even bother to hide their disinterest. When he finished, there was an uncomfortable silence in the room. Finally, the senior partner, Mr. Amaro, a man with a deep voice and imposing presence, cleared his throat before speaking. Thank you, Jan. Your presentation was interesting. However, I think we need someone with more experience to lead this part of the case. Clara, please take over from here. Mr. Amaro's words fell like a stone on Jan's heart. He knew he had done a good job, but once again, he felt that his skin color and youth were insurmountable barriers in that environment. Clara gave him a condescending look, as if to say, "I told you so," before taking control of the meeting. When the session ended, Jan left the room feeling small, as if the weight of all the expectations he carried was crushing his hopes. He took refuge in one of the office's small break rooms, trying to reorganize his thoughts. It was at that moment that Enrique, a younger lawyer but already established at the firm, entered the room. Enrique was known for his intelligence and for being one of the few there who apparently didn't judge Jan by his skin color. He approached with a friendly smile. "You did well in there, Jan. Don't let what happened discourage you. I know how hard it is. I've seen it happen to others before you," Enrique said sincerely. Jan looked up, surprised by Enrique's empathy. "It's hard, you know. It feels like no matter how hard I try, I'll always be seen as less than the others here," Jan confessed, his voice choked with frustration. Enrique nodded, understanding perfectly what he meant. "I know things here aren't fair, but don't give up. Keep showing your worth. There's a network of people willing to help. We just need to find them and strengthen our bonds," Enrique suggested, giving him a light pat on the back and a supportive gesture. Those words ignited a spark of hope in Jan's heart. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. From that moment on, Jan decided he wouldn't let himself be discouraged. He would seek allies, learn to navigate that hostile environment, and above all, continue fighting for his dream. The path would be arduous, but Jan knew he wasn't willing to give up so easily. In the weeks that followed, Jan took Enrique's advice and began to observe the dynamics within the firm more closely. He noticed that despite the often hostile environment, there were a few people who, like Enrique, seemed willing to lend a hand. Among these people was Beatriz, a brilliant lawyer and one of the few black women at the firm. Beatriz was known for her competence and for not being intimidated by adversity. Jan had always admired her from afar, but had never had the courage to approach her. However, one day, while working late in the firm's library, Beatrice approached him. "Jan, may I sit?" she asked with a warm smile. "Of course, please do," he replied, surprised by the approach. Beatrice sat down next to him, observing the documents he was analyzing. "You're working on the Estrella factory case, right? I heard about the meeting. I heard you did an excellent job," she said straightforwardly. Jan sighed, knowing she was aware of how things had played out. "I try my best, but it seems it's never enough," he responded, frustration resurfacing. Beatrice nodded, understanding his pain. "I've been through that. In fact, all of us who are different from the majority here have. It's a daily struggle, but we need to support each other and keep going. And who knows, maybe start creating our own opportunities," she suggested, looking at him firmly. "What do you mean, creating our own opportunities?" Jan asked, intrigued. "For some time now, I've been involved with a group of lawyers and activists working to bring visibility to racial and social equality issues in the legal sector. We want to create a space where our voices are heard and where we can make a difference, not just in small victories within firms like this, but also in the lives of the people who need it most," Beatrice explained, her eyes shining with passion. Jan was surprised but also curious. The idea of being part of something bigger, something that truly impacted the world around him, deeply attracted him. "Would you like to join?" Beatrice asked, smiling. Jan didn't need to think twice. "Yes, I'd love to," he replied, feeling a new enthusiasm grow in his chest. Beatrice began introducing Jan to the group, which consisted of lawyers, judges, and activists who shared the same vision. The meetings were discreet, held outside office hours, often in cafes or at the homes of some members. With each meeting, Jan felt he was gaining more than just legal knowledge. He was gaining a support network, a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. As he became more involved, Jan began to understand that the fight for equality went far beyond the walls of the law firm. It was a battle that needed to be fought on multiple fronts, in laws and institutions, but also in the hearts and minds of people. Over time, he began to realize that Enrique and Beatrice, along with other colleagues he met through the group, were looking for ways to make significant changes within the firm itself. They knew that to change the system, they had to start from within. This is how Jan began collaborating on a project to propose internal diversity and inclusion policies, something that was practically non-existent at the firm. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to make a difference. However, as Jan became more involved with these initiatives, he also began to notice that not all colleagues were willing to support changes. Some people, uncomfortable with Jan's growing influence, started acting even more hostile, trying to undermine his efforts. But Jan was no longer alone. Now, he had allies and, more importantly, he had a purpose. Over time, Jan's involvement in the group of lawyers and activists began to attract the attention of the firm's higher-ups. Some saw his actions as bold, while others considered them a threat to the status quo. Mr. Amaro, in particular, seemed troubled by Jan's growing confidence and influence. He had always been a man who valued tradition, and the changes Jan and his allies were proposing threatened what he considered the natural order of things. One day, Jan was summoned to Mr. Amaro's office. When he entered, he found the senior partner sitting behind his imposing mahogany desk, with an expression that mixed severity with false cordiality. "Sit down, Jan," Amaro said, pointing to the chair in front of him. Jan obeyed, feeling a chill down his spine. Something in the air told him this conversation wouldn't be good. "I've noticed that you've been involved in some initiatives outside of your usual work here at the firm," Amaro began, his voice calm but loaded with subtext. "Yes, sir. I'm trying to contribute in ways that I believe are important for the future of the firm and for society," Jan replied cautiously. Amaro nodded slowly, as if pondering his next words. "It's admirable that you want to make a difference, Jan, but I need to remind you that your focus should be here, on your responsibilities at the firm. Any distraction could compromise your performance and, consequently, your future here," he said, in a tone that made it clear this was not a suggestion. Jan's heart raced. He knew Amaro was trying to intimidate him, but he also knew he couldn't give up on his fight. "With all due respect, sir, I believe that a firm like ours should lead by example, promoting equality and diversity. That's where my focus is, Jan responded, trying to maintain his composure. Amaro didn't reply immediately. Instead, he leaned forward, his hands clasped on the desk. I understand, but let me be clear, Jan. If you continue down this path, you may encounter obstacles you weren't expecting. The firm is a competitive place, and there's no room for mistakes, he said, with a softness that was more threatening than any shout. Jan left the office feeling shaken but determined. He knew Amaro's words were a warning, but he couldn't afford to back down now. The support network he had built with Beatriz, Enrique, and other members of the group was his driving force. However, Amaro's threats were not empty. In a short time, Jan began to notice that he was being sabotaged. Documents he needed mysteriously disappeared, crucial information was withheld, and his mistakes, no matter how small, were exaggerated and brought to the attention of the higher-ups. He knew this was the work of some colleagues who wanted to see him fail, but he couldn't prove anything. Then a new crisis hit the firm. One of the most important cases, involving a major corporation accused of discriminatory practices, was at risk. The person in charge of the case was none other than Mr. Amaro, and the firm depended on a victory to maintain its reputation. Enrique, who was also working on the case, confided in Jan that something was wrong. He had discovered that Amaro was deliberately withholding information that could harm the corporation, and that this omission could put the firm in serious trouble if it were discovered. Jan, this is serious. If this information comes to light, not only Amaro, but the entire firm could be sued for obstruction of justice. We need to do something, Enrique said, clearly worried. But what can we do? If we expose this, they'll destroy us. Jan replied, aware of the potential consequences. Enrique thought for a moment before suggesting, maybe we can find a way to expose this without putting ourselves directly in the line of fire. We need to be smart. It was then that an idea began to take shape in Jan's mind. It was risky, but it might be the only way to save not only their careers, but also to expose the injustices he had been fighting against. With Beatriz's help, they began planning what would be the biggest move of their professional lives. The following days were tense, with Jan, Enrique, and Beatriz working discreetly on their plan. They knew they couldn't trust many people within the firm, so they had to act with extreme caution. The key to success was obtaining irrefutable evidence of Amaro's illicit conduct. Beatriz, who had access to some of the firm's most restricted areas due to her position, managed to locate and copy the documents Amaro was hiding. These documents, if made public, would clearly show that the senior partner was protecting the corporation in exchange for financial favors, something that could destroy his career and forever tarnish the firm's name. With the evidence in hand, the trio faced a dilemma: how to expose Amaro without suffering the consequences themselves. The answer came in the form of an anonymous tip. Using a secure network beyond the reach of the firm's investigations, they sent the evidence to an investigative journalist known for his integrity and for fighting against corporate corruption. Days later, the bomb exploded. The city's largest newspaper ran a front-page story detailing Amaro's corrupt practices and the firm's complicity in protecting the discriminatory corporation. The evidence was clear, and the reaction was immediate. The firm went into crisis, with important clients threatening to withdraw their business and the media pressing for answers. Amaro was temporarily suspended while the firm conducted an internal investigation. Within the firm, the atmosphere was one of panic. Some employees tried to distance themselves from Amaro, while others, who suspected Jan and his allies, watched them with distrust. But no one had proof against them, and for now, the trio was safe. Despite the initial success, Jan, Enrique, and Beatriz knew they were far from being out of danger. Amaro's removal wasn't the end. He still had powerful allies within the firm and in the corporate world. Moreover, there was the constant fear of being discovered as the ones responsible for the tip. The tension was palpable. Jan began to feel the effects of stress on his body and mind. He slept poorly, was always on alert, and the constant meetings and whispers among the partners made him uneasy. He knew that if Amaro regained power, his revenge would be ruthless. It was in this scenario that Beatriz had a bold idea: to suggest a radical change in the firm's leadership. She believed that the moment of crisis could be an opportunity for more progressive and diversity-minded partners to take on positions of greater influence. This would not only remove Amaro permanently, but also create a more welcoming and fair environment for everyone. We need to seize the moment. If we can convince some of the partners to support this change, we can turn the tide for good, Beatriz said as they discussed the plan in a discreet cafe in the city. Enrique was skeptical, but agreed that it was a risk worth taking. They needed to win the support of key people within the firm, and Johan, with his recent visibility, was the perfect person for the job. Johan, despite his hesitation, knew he couldn't back down now. He began approaching partners who had shown sympathy for his ideas in the past, talking about the need for renewal, for a change that would permanently remove the scandals and create a new reputation for the firm. The strategy began to work. Some of the younger and more progressive partners started aligning themselves with Johan and his allies, while others, fearing for the firm's future, began to consider the idea of radical changes. As the behind-the-scenes conversations gained momentum, a vote was called to decide the firm's future. The partners would gather to choose new leadership and define the firm's direction. It was a decisive moment for Johan, Beatriz, and Enrique. On the day of the vote, the firm was in a state of maximum tension. The corridors were filled with murmurs, and everyone knew that this decision would change the fate of many people. Johan, despite the pressure, remained firm, knowing he had done everything he could to win the necessary support. When the voting began, the cards were laid on the table. The partners fiercely debated, with some defending Amaro's continuation while others clamored for renewal. Beatriz, in a powerful speech, spoke about the importance of values like integrity, diversity, and innovation for the firm's future. Her speech touched many hearts, and she was applauded by a significant portion of those present. Finally, the results were announced. A new, younger, and more diverse leadership would take control of the firm. Amaro was officially removed from his position, and in the face of the scandal, decided to step away for an indefinite period. Johan, Enrique, and Beatriz celebrated the victory, aware that they had not only changed the fate of the firm, but also their own lives. Johan, especially, felt a sense of accomplishment like never before. He knew the fight wasn't over, but this was a crucial step toward a more just future. With the new leadership, the firm began implementing significant changes. Inclusion and diversity policies were introduced, and employees began to have a say in creating a more just and welcoming environment. Johan was promoted, recognized for his determination and competence, and became one of the firm's most respected lawyers. However, as Johan adapted to his new position, something unexpected happened. One day, while reviewing old files, he came across a document that left him perplexed. It was a letter, dated over 20 years ago, signed by one of the firm's founders. The letter talked about a secret alliance between the firm and a powerful network of businessmen who, for decades, had manipulated judicial and political decisions for their own benefit. The most shocking part was finding Amaro's name among those mentioned in the letter, along with a list of lawyers who were part of this network. Johan realized that this discovery had the potential to unearth dark secrets that could not only destroy the firm, but also shake the power structures in the city. Johan, stunned, knew he had to act carefully. He shared the discovery with Beatriz and Enrique, and the three realized they were dealing with something much bigger than they had expected. The dilemma was clear. Should they reveal the truth, risking their careers and even their lives, or keep the secret to preserve the stability they had achieved? Johan, Beatriz, and Enrique spent sleepless nights discussing the implications of revealing the content of the letter. They knew they were dealing with powerful forces that wouldn't hesitate to use all means to silence them. At the same time, they couldn't ignore the moral responsibility to expose the truth. If we don't do it, who will? Johan said, anguished. We can't keep living with this weight on our shoulders. Beatriz, always the most thoughtful of the group, reflected before responding. We need to find a safe way to release this information. Maybe we can involve the media again, but in a way that protects us. Enrique agreed, but suggested an even bolder plan. What if we use this information to force an even bigger change? We could negotiate with those involved, ensuring our safety while gradually exposing the truth. It wouldn't be easy, but we could avoid direct retaliation. After much discussion, they decided that Enrique would contact the journalist who had helped expose Amaro earlier, while Beatriz would start gathering additional evidence to strengthen their case. Johan, for his part, would use his new position at the firm to monitor the movements of the older partners, ensuring that nothing escaped his radar. The following weeks were intense. Johan, Beatriz, and Enrique worked tirelessly to gather all the necessary information. When they were finally ready, they decided to hold a meeting with the partners involved in the conspiracy, using the evidence they had as leverage. The meeting took place in a private conference room, away from the curious eyes of the employees. The atmosphere was heavy, and the partners, initially arrogant, quickly realized they were at a disadvantage when Johan and his allies began presenting the evidence. "You know what this means, right?" Johan said, his voice firm. "We can expose all of you, and this will not only destroy your careers, but also land many of you in jail." The partners looked at each other, some in panic, others in fury. One of them, one of the oldest and most influential, tried to intimidate Johan. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, boy. This could end very badly for you." Beatriz intervened, her voice sharp. "Don't underestimate our determination. We have everything we need to bring down this network of corruption, but we're willing to negotiate if you agree to our terms." After a long and tense silence, the partners finally conceded. The deal was made. They would relinquish their positions and sever all ties with the corrupt network. In return, Johan, Beatriz, and Enrique would ensure that the information was released in a controlled manner, avoiding a larger catastrophe. With the agreement in place, Johan, Beatriz, and Enrique felt a wave of relief, but also a sense of responsibility. They knew they had made the right choice, but the fight for justice was far from over. The firm underwent another restructuring, with many of the old partners being replaced by lawyers committed to ethics and equality. The changes were deep and visible, and Johan, now one of the leaders of the new generation, became a symbol of resistance and transformation. The letter, with its dark secrets, was finally released to the press, but in a controlled manner, ensuring that those involved were held accountable without causing a collapse in the structure of the firm or the city. The impact was huge, but Johan and his allies were widely praised for their courage. In the end, Johan realized that his journey was only beginning. The fight against racism, inequality, and corruption was long and full of challenges, but he knew he was no longer alone. With the strength of his network of allies and the experience he had gained, he was ready to continue making a difference, not just in his life, but in the lives of many others. And so, on a sunny morning, Johan walked through the renewed firm, feeling that he had finally found his place in the world. A place where he could continue fighting for his dreams. Now with the certainty that no matter how difficult the obstacles, he and his allies would always find a way to overcome them.